And you're listening to the Popcorn Conspiracy on centralcoastradio.com. Now, we're going to take a look at one of the big movies that's in cinemas at the moment, and that is John Wick Chapter 4. Now, this has turned out to be one of the most anticipated films of this year because so many people have fallen in love with this franchise. And to be honest, this film just picks up where the last film finished off. John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, is on the run. He's now excommunicated from the order that he once worked for, and despite recent events, he still has Winston, Ian McShane, the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne, and Sharon Lance Reddick on his side. But it seems everybody else in New York has turned on him. So after taking out the head of the high table, John seeks refuge with his good friend Shimaji Koji, played by Hiroyuki Sanada, at the Osaka Continental, while in New York, a Marquess, played by Bill Skarsgård, turns up determined to not only bring John to justice, but to bring anyone associated with him down as well. Now, the Marquis instantly closes down the New York Continental and removes Winston and Sharon from their posts. He then hires a friend of John's, a blind assassin named Kane, played by Donnie Yen, to kill him under the threat that his daughter will be killed if he doesn't. Now, as Kane turns up in Osaka to do the Marquess's dirty work, he's joined by a mysterious tracker played by Shania Anderson, who has been lured by the big money on offer to join in the hunt for John. With now an entire army after John, he must work out a way to try and defeat them or find another path towards freeing himself from the price on his head. The film, of course, is directed by Chad Stahelski, who's done the rest of the franchise as well. But let's get everybody else's opinion on this film first. So, Kyle, you're a huge fan of this franchise. What did you think of John Wick Chapter 4?
Yeah. I've been a fan of the movie since the first one, and yeah, I thought that they all really flowed really well into each other, and the third one I just loved, and so I was a little surprised that I felt like I was a little bit let down by this one in some ways. Not so much with the action, but just as far as the story in it went. This movie's almost 3 hours, and it's like 3 hours of ass kicking, and like Keanu Reeves once again is just amazing all the way through it. Like it's interesting that he and Tom Cruise are both like around 60, and they both seem to be the two biggest Hollywood figureheads for action films at the moment. But also in the film, another actor that I'm a huge fan of is Donnie Yen, and it was really great seeing him in another movie that uh, really utilized his talents a lot better than a lot of other Hollywood films have done. He's a huge star in Hong Kong, but um, yeah, just a lot of Western movies have really wasted him, and there's some movies that if you found out that he was in them, you wouldn't even realize it because just basically he was pushed to the side. But like this is one that they really used his abilities as a martial artist really well, and it's interesting that he's playing a blind character in this as well because he played a blind character in Star Wars Rogue One just a few years ago, so that was kind of interesting. Um,
Typecasting.
yeah, I don't know. It's I mean the only kind of issues I have with it is that I don't think that the story really flowed well from John Wick 3 as far as going on to the next level. Like I thought that John Wick 2 followed on from 1 really well, and 3 followed on from 2 really well. This one John Wick 3 had a pretty clear to be continued, and the opening of this one starts off like it acknowledges that the idea that the Barry King and John Wick are pretty much going to be going up against the high table, but then it kind of forgets about that, and really it's another story that really feels like a retread of what happened in John Wick 2, where he just has this character that he wants to kill, and he has like an increasing bounty being put on his head, and the number keeps going up and up and up, and then he has to kill more and more people. Um, I thought that there was kind of a lack of uh real standout set pieces in the movie. I mean, all again, don't get me wrong, all of the action is really great, but it kind of all blended into itself, into each other. There was one scene in the movie which is kind of like a top-down shootout where John Wick is using these explosive dragon breath rounds. That's the highlight of the whole film. That part is the best sequence, one of the best sequences in the entire franchise. But the rest of the scenes in just kind of all bled into each other. There's even another character in this who fights with dogs the same way that Halle Berry's character did in the previous movie. So it felt like they kind of, in some ways, ran out of ideas. And I think that that's kind of a problem with it being a 3 hour movie. I don't think that it really justifies its 3 hour runtime. I think that maybe if they had cut it down a little bit, they might have been able to have a much tighter story for what it was. It's a hugely entertaining film, and it's great seeing John Wick just go up against these sheer numbers of enemies. But story wise, I just thought that it was kind of a letdown after the third one, which I thought was a I know I'm kind of in the minority here because a lot of people didn't really like the third one. But yeah, I thought the third one did really well for set pieces, and this one I thought was, yeah, just kind of disappointing for me.
And Harley, what did you think of John Wick Chapter 4?
Um, oh, I won't say it was disappointing, but yeah, there was a feeling of you expected there to be something else in it.
Mm.
And yeah, like you point out, for such a long film, I kind of feel like there should have been just that extra something. Um, I don't know, like they've created your boss level opponent for for the end, but well, kind of in two parts, but it doesn't feel like that was the ultimate climax to me, to be honest. I feel like there's a bigger um target to hit, and
Mm.
at the same time it's like, well, we want to be able to give this a conclusion in case this is the last one, but even then I kind of feel like uh I don't really feel like that was a legitimate ending. I feel like we're kind of being sidelined by that. And you're right that I remember seeing number two, and number three picked up right from the end of that. It was like, okay, definite sequelitis there.
Mm.
And I couldn't quite remember the ending of three, but I know I did enjoy it. And it feels like they've tried to get a bit of all that in it again, just in, the big fight sequences across Paris. But yeah, it somehow didn't seem as big or something. I'm not sure what it is, but again, it's a very enjoyable movie. You go to John Wick and you know what to expect. So,
Mm.
you know, the audience who is going to see it should be pretty happy with what they're going there to get. They just felt like, yeah, a little bit of something might have been missing. I feel there's like a layer to the story that's not there that could have been somehow, unless, it goes on to something else. But it seems to be set up quite rife for spin-offs.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't continue in itself, it would be spin-off heavy because it set up all these other stories and things.
Yeah.
But look, performance-wise, it's great. Good fight. I agree with the scene where it's very much bird's eye view going through this mansion or church or whatever it was being restored.
Mm.
All the scenes in that were just so well shot. Like that's such a joy to watch that sequence. And I kind of love the dog. The dog is my hero in this film. I almost think there should have been more of the dog. But the other sort of highlight for me was just that one little scene my name is Klaus. And when you see the movie, you'll know what that is. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just a weird thing that pops out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay. That's right. That was my take home, that little moment.
And Lee,
But
what did go
yeah.
ahead, Holly?
No, I was just gonna say it's quite amazing. Yeah, you just watch all of John Wick and thinking Keanu looks like he's ready to fall over. Like he looks like his body is so old and broken just the way he walks, but I don't know if that's just the way he walks or if he's actually playing injured.
It's
So
got a funny way of running. Yeah.
I kept looking, and whenever he runs, it looks like his legs were buckling inward, and I'm like, is he okay?
Well, the interesting thing is this whole franchise takes part in 1 week.
Yeah.
Like, and Keanu Reeves looks like he's aged a decade in that 1 week. So
well, he had to do Bill and Ted in the middle of that somewhere, didn't he? So you know. But yeah, look, that's most of my take home with it.
Yeah. So Lee, what did you think of John Wick Chapter 4?
Well, it's certainly an entertaining, fast-paced action movie. The body count is high. I was trying to count it at the start and I completely lost count. I don't know if anyone's done that count yet, but you know, it's hundreds.
Do the bullet count.
Yeah.
And how many bullets bounce off guys' foreheads? I never understood that. For some reason throughout this film, there's a bunch of guys that seem to be shot in the head 5 times and then eventually they die. What?
It's Jonathan Brown, the ex-footballer who came out this week and said he's got 64 screws and 16 plates in his head. So
they keep bouncing off all the other bullets that are embedded in there.
Yeah.
That's it. So there's guns, knives, swords, falls, cars, nunchucks, explosions, animals, stairs. I'm just going to say stairs because the stair scene got to a stage where I just actually giggled at how far they went with the stair scene. You'll know when you see it. And I accidentally said out loud, "Oh, come on." Like it just got to that stage where I was like, no, like that just doesn't feel real now, but very entertaining at the same time.
Stairs. Lots of stairs.
Stairs.
Even before that scene, there were stairs in that mansion or whatever it was that was being refurbished, and I'm just every time he goes up a stair, I'm like, can you handle stairs?
More stairs. I would not have made it even the first floor. I personally liked this movie out of the John Wick series. I liked it the best. I know it was quite long, obviously 3 hours, but it did keep me entertained. Visually, I like the scenes of the horses at the start. I don't know if everyone remembers that, but it opened with this brilliant horses scene. And I also liked the scenes in the New York Continental. Visually, I just like the way they set up the hotel and everything like that as well. But Keanu Reeves always a star, and Donnie Yen playing a blind person in the scenes that he plays, you know, in sword fights and everything like that. That would take a lot of training and a lot of commitment to be able to get to that stage, to be able to pull that off so well, because he's literally in scene. You can tell that even as an actor, he's not looking around himself. Like he is definitely playing it as if he's blind. And I just thought that was brilliant. Yeah, I think that there's more to the ending than what we were left with, maybe an underlying storyline. So I was left like, even though it was 3 hours, I was like, no, I want to see the next bit. I'm not sure. So I waited through the whole credits, and there was something in the credits.
Yeah.
But not the bit I was hoping for. But so now I'm left on the edge of my seat, actually waiting for the next one. But anyone who likes action films, I think, and who likes this series, I really think you'll get enjoyment out of this, and you'll certainly be entertained if you love the action.
Definitely, yeah. I really like this one too. I like the fact that Chad Stahelski, it feels like, has really embraced Asian cinema with this film. It's kind of interesting because some of this film is set in Japan, but it feels like he's borrowed more from Thai cinema, where quite often in Thai action films, they'll have these huge action set pieces, but they'll always have drama with dialogue as well. I liked that in this film there was a fair bit of dialogue between the characters as well. There were some really good scenes there between Tracker, Kane, and the Marquess. There was also some really good scenes, I thought, with Shimazi Koji, the character as well, when he was talking, and some of those scenes had just as much suspense with them as what you got from some of the action set pieces as well. So I think I really, really liked that. I liked that Stileski still managed to put storyline in there with dialogue as well. One of the things I did find really interesting with this film, and I think I found it with some of the previous John Wicks as well, there are a lot of characters that pop up that I actually feel for a lot more than I do John Wick. Like, I've always been a fan of the Bowery King, the Lawrence Fishburne character in this franchise. But in this film, I really liked Shimazi, and I really liked Kane and even Tracker. Those three characters, to me, almost felt at times like they were more important to than John Wick. Like, I was finding myself looking for them when there was action sequences and stuff, just because I liked the characters so much. I think the one thing they did get right with this film, though, was that there was an interesting villain. A lot of the times in action films like this, and even the big superhero films that we see, they kind of have these villains that are just not memorable. Whereas this guy, the Marquess, played by Bill Skarsgård, he was gutless in that he was bringing in other people to kill John Wick, but he was still memorable. I found his character to be kind of deplorable in the sense that he's like, well, I can't kill this guy, so I'll bring in one of his best friends and blackmail him to do it. I kind of liked that with his character. I thought that brought a little bit of an interesting twist to some of the stuff that we've seen in this franchise so far. I do agree with you guys, though. I kept on waiting for something to happen that was, which sounds weird because there's so many great action set pieces in this film, but I just kept on waiting for that one thing to happen that never really happened. But I was kind of glad that it felt like it borrowed a lot from Thai cinema with the like I said, the dialogue being a major part of it as well, and raising the suspense. So yeah, I did enjoy that element to it. By the end of it, though, I was getting to that point where I was like, oh, come on, there is no way he could survive that. Like, especially that sequence in Paris where he's getting hit by cars left, right, and center. I was kind of like, yeah, this is making me suspend my belief.
Well, you know, the bulletproof Kevlar that their suits are made of is also car-proof.
Yeah.
I just kept I kept on finding myself thinking it's making me suspend my belief just that little bit too much. But look, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. I love seeing Keanu Reeves give out a good ass kicking to a few people. So yeah, I did enjoy it on that element. But what are we all going to give this one out of 5, starting with you, Kyle?
I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, it's an endlessly entertaining movie for 3 hours. Like I was never bored while watching it. It's just, yeah, I guess it's just because I felt that 3 did much more had a lot more standout moments than this one did. Even though it goes for 3 hours, it's 3 hours long. It doesn't have really the standout moments. And again, if this is kind of how they I agree with everyone. Like, the way that if this is how they want to kind of wrap it up, it's a little bit, it's a little bit I don't know, just a little bit of a disappointing wrap up. So I don't know. Yeah, just 3.5 for me.
And Holly?
Yeah, I've been struggling thinking about what I want to give this. Again, like, there are so many elements. Like, it is just to sit there and watch it. It's an enjoyable movie. The cinematography was brilliant. And yeah, it occurs to me when what you were talking about, Dave, the kind of relationships and characters that were introduced in this film made for a really interesting watch. But we've already been introduced to John Wick, so there feels like a bit less effort there. And the fact that we're interacting with assassins who are like his friends, and you know, one of them has been hired to kill him. I feel like we didn't get enough of these relationships.
Yeah.
And so maybe some characters that could have been used more were, out of the story too early, because we could have played with that a bit more. But then again, feeling like there's something bigger that wasn't in there. But I think I might agree with Kyle and say 3.5.
And Lee?
I'm going to go 4.5. I'm not sure why, but I did like this one more than others. Just personal preference, I guess. And yeah, as I said, there's some really amazing scenes that I liked within it. And being such a long movie, I would sometimes be starting to look at my watch, or if I could, and be like, oh, how long is left? But that didn't happen with this film. I was like, yeah, I'm fully engaged in this, even when it got a bit beyond believable, because you just wouldn't live through a lot of what happened. But it did leave me hoping that they would make another one. So if they don't, I will be very disappointed, because the ending, I think, alludes to there's something else.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think I really enjoyed the screenplay with this one. I love those scenes where the dialogue and raise the suspense, and I love the action in this one. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. And you are listening to the Popcorn Conspiracy on centralcoastradio.com. You can head out and see John Wick Chapter 4 in most cinemas. It's out right around Australia right now, so make sure you go and see it. And yeah, you're on centralcoastradio.com.